Welcome back to another episode here. Super excited to have Travis Ryan on the call. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, of course. So I'm super excited, as always, to have a success story. I have my students behind me, I have my students in my office to remind me who I am accountable to. And Travis is still on my board. He will be moved off of this right now. So you're right here, buddy. Can you see yourself?
I can. Yep.
I think it's a
Yep.
picture of you and your little girl there.
That's right. I'm excited to come off the wall and
You're
move
gonna
on to the next wall.
you're gonna be on the success wall in my main office, and
All right.
this week is a huge week for me as a coach. I'm so proud of you and a few more students. I think we're gonna have 5 people get off of the office wall onto the success wall just this week. So pretty
That's
feeling
great.
very blessed, very grateful. Hi, my name is Zack Boothe, and I help people just like you consistently find massively discounted properties all across the country so you can fix and flip, buy and hold, or wholesale real estate. If you need help, I have a ton of free resources, including an absolutely free wholesaling course. Click on the link in the show notes to get access to those free resources, or you can go to dfdmastery.com, click on free resources, and get access to all the free content. I'm sure the listeners are going to want to know about you. So I see you have your daughter, you have a family, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, this deal, like I was telling you about, it's not like there was a huge assignment fee, but it was big for me as far as proof of concept goes. Because I've had these conversations with my wife before getting started of, should you do this, should you not, why, and how much are we going to put into it, what are we going to do? And basically she's looking at me waiting to see whether or not, I mean, she's supportive, but there's a difference between being supportive and being completely on board,
Right.
and
Right.
and so to see, okay, like, there's actually a check coming in from this, you can do this, and to hear
Yeah.
her say that was a big deal,
I love it.
um, and so knowing that now she is in, like, hey, where are you going to find your next lead, what are you going to do, it just adds another layer of motivation into it. So I'm real happy to get the first one under the belt.
Well, I want to talk about this first one, and I want to talk about the other contract you have. And we're going to talk about that success and what that means to you. But I think for the listeners to get an understanding of what that means to you, I think they kind of need a background story. So if you'd share with us,
Sure.
where you were before wholesaling in your life, and I know your story. We've talked a ton. But
Yeah.
I think it's such an awesome story of struggle and overcoming that struggle. I just have a ton of respect for you. So I'd love the listeners to hear that story as well,
Well,
if you're
well,
willing to
thanks.
share.
I'm not sure how much you want to know. I don't talk about it much, but um, I'm a chiropractor. That's my profession. And when I got into the profession, I just, find certain roadblocks that I've hit, and the big thing, I love it. I love what I do, um, but I hit a big roadblock last year. So within the last year, I had to give up my business, and that was very difficult for me. Because I thought that I had been excelling in it, and I tried a couple of risky things. Um, the business was actually pretty successful. We partnered up, made a medical office, had done a lot of different things, and and we brought in a lot of money. We generated quite a bit, and then a lot of things happened this last year, and it just made it difficult for chiropractic offices, and I found myself bleeding in a lot of ways financially, and then had to shut down the doors, and shut down the clinic, close the doors, and it was hard. It was hard to look at that and to see that failure and think, am I a failure as a business person? Is my purpose not strong enough? What did I do wrong? And I kept looking at that and looking at that.
Sounds like you beat
Um,
yourself up a little bit.
Sure, with the idea of trying to understand what I could do to get better.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at other things, different markets and real estate. And I imagine a lot of people are probably in a similar situation where they come into wholesaling or real estate from another profession or another job or something along those lines, where they're just trying to figure out what the next move is, right? So
Mhm.
I still work full time. I went from owning my own business and employing 13 people to taking a job somewhere. And so I work full time right now. And I thought, well, I can do wholesaling on the side. And so the more that I looked into it, the more I got excited about it. I saw an interview that you had done and said, well, I want to jump in and do this. And so I had kind of waited to tell my wife what I wanted to do. And I hid a little bit of money, just on the side, because I said, I know that I'm going to want to do something, and I don't want to have to answer for using a certain amount of money to do it. And so when I found you, I was like,
Does
this
your
is
wife
it.
know this? Does your wife know
She
this, or is
does
she gonna?
now. Yeah, she does now.
Okay.
And she's grateful that I did it that way now. But uh, anyway, after seeing your interview, I said, okay, well, I'm going to jump in, and I started into this process a little bit. And to quote some of the guys from wholesale, who is it, Brett Daniels, and some of those
Mhm.
guys, it was a ready, fire, aim situation,
Mhm.
and instead of ready, aim, fire, and just jumped in trying to figure things out in between work and on weekends and other stuff. And I've been at it for a few months. I know other people have seen success sooner than that, but it, it felt good to keep going. And every time that I would hit something where I'm like, well, not enough, I don't have enough leads, or maybe I don't understand this well enough, I'd come back to you. You'd tell me things to do or correct, and I'd try to implement those things. And now I feel like after getting this first deal in, I've got consistent lead flow and consistent pinning. So we're pinning, 1,000 to 1,500 a week,
Mhm.
and it's been consistent for the past month or so. And so, I really feel like there's a future doing this. So I want to
Uh,
thank you for the first deal.
well, I appreciate you thanking me. One thing I need to compliment you on, and I want everyone to understand this, is you made it a priority to be successful, right? And I gave you action steps, and I supported you. Yes, I care about my students. I love my students, right? Truly do. And so I'm glad that you appreciate me, but I also want to compliment you for staying consistent, right? And you should pat yourself on the back and be proud of yourself. And just before this call, I want you guys to understand Travis is a very humble person. He's like, it's not a lot of money, it's not a big deal. Like, are you sure you want to interview this success story? And I think it's great, right? But I want to back up a little bit for the listeners. I'm sure a lot of people want to know a few more things. So when you were doing some research to find a mentor, um, and you had mentioned some amazing mentors. You had mentioned Wholesaling Inc. You had mentioned Brent Daniels, who I love. I love him, like great people, great coaching company. But why me? Like why go with someone like myself versus someone like them?
Well, that's funny because um, in the profession that I was in before, well, when I had my clinic, I had spent a lot of money on coaching. I'd spent over $100,000 on coaching,
Okay.
and
So
I've seen
coaching was like you knew that it worked. You just wanted to
yeah,
make sure. Okay, cool.
for sure. And in when I looked at it before, I noticed something with the coaching that I had done before. There are all kinds of different coaches. There are coaches that are small and just trying to figure stuff out, coaches that are huge and they're trying to get the mechanics of their own business together. And I told my wife before, I said, I want to get into wholesaling and I want to find a mentor and a coach that's somewhere in between that, where they know the day to day mechanics. They've got their own business where they're doing that themselves. And I want a coach that knows that and is not so big that you get lost in the shuffle, or maybe that's I guess kind of beholden to their vendors more than their clients, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a
Uh,
lot of coaches I noticed that, they push products, they push things for affiliate commissions, not necessarily because that's what would benefit and help the students, right? Like,
yeah,
um, yeah. So that's interesting. So how long ago now did you sign? It was 2.5 months ago then?
yeah, 2.5 months ago, I guess is what it was. Yeah,
Okay.
two and a
And
half,
you
three.
had
Yeah,
you had mentioned when you were sharing your story that you hit a couple of roadblocks throughout that time frame. And I know
Sure.
you've been very active on the weekly support calls that you have access to. And what are some of those things that I helped you with? Like, what are those roadblocks that
Well,
we overcame?
um, one of the big one of the big things that you said right off the bat is you need consistency, right? Consistent lead generation and lead flow. And I believe that. And so I at first I was pinning 250 homes in a week,
And
and
when you
then
say pinning, so some people don't know what that means. So like pinning homes, like what that means is you were driving around, identifying properties have physical signs of neglect and adding them to your marketing list, right? So that's what he means by pinning houses. Just clarify that for someone that doesn't know what that means.
yeah, and so with that, and I was wondering, I guess in my head, like you always underestimate what it takes, right?
Mhm.
So to me, it was like, okay, well, that's how many homes that I'm seeing in a week. That's enough for me to do X amount of deals a month or whatever. I realized, no, I've got to put in more effort
Yep.
first, just to see what it takes to get something in my market. And then, I spoke with a couple different guys in the group, and they were really helpful. Spoke with Nick, and he said, "Man, that's
Nick
good for
rolls.
a day." Yeah, said that's
Yeah.
good for a
I love
day. You
Nick.
need to be doing like that's a drop in the bucket until you
Hmm.
get that first deal or two to figure out, okay, how many leads do I need to generate, or homes do I need to look at in a
Hmm.
week? And so whether that's 1,000 or two in a month or 8,000 in a month, I got to figure out what that is. And so you told me to up it to 1,000 in a week. I've got, luckily, I've got a lot of family, and so a lot of teenage kids that are around, nephews and nieces, and I put them all to work. And so
I love
they're
it. I love it.
so they're putting in about 1,000 to 1,500 homes and a week, and I'm happy to do that. It's done good things for our family. My sister's telling me that her two sons go and they look at homes together, and they've actually gotten closer in the process. So it's been positive on a lot of different levels.
I love it. I love that you're recruiting family. You're doing whatever it takes because you are working full time. You have a family to support. How many kids do you
Sure.
have again?
Three.
Three. So you have three kids, a wife, you're full time chiropractor, and trying to get into this game. You're still able to do your marketing and appointments and that kind of stuff as well. So, you ended up doing some marketing over those few months. I know that you had some leads that fell apart, right? And we were
Yeah.
working.
Oh, just yeah. So good leads, but one of those just hard learning experiences where afterward you say, okay, that's a great learning experience. That's an expensive learning experience. Let's go on to the next one, you know?
You're right. Yeah. So I know you had one, or did you have two deals fall apart because of some mistakes?
Two,
Two.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Gotcha.
yeah, some of those things that, they fall apart, and you look at it afterward and think, okay, well, what could I have done? And I spoke with you about it and you helped me understand a few things. And so I think that going into it next time, I'm a little better prepared.
Yeah. I just had a call. I called. Uh, is it, uh, hold on a second. Couldn't remember his last name. Winston Wright. I called him, and he's in Missouri.
Hmm.
And I called him. He's a youth pastor and great guy. And I hadn't heard from him in a while. He signed up like 6 months ago, and I was like, "Where you been? Like, what are you doing? Are you not working? Are you doing this?" And he's like, dude, I just had a deal fall apart last week. And he's like, I was so devastated. I was thinking about giving up. And I was like, I'm so glad I called you. And he's like, dude, now I know truly you care. And I was like, well, first of all, why in the hell did you not reach out to me through like the Facebook group and ask me for support? Because, my first deal I ever put under contract was an 8-unit apartment building, and I didn't make any money on it. It was really frustrating and discouraging to spend all that time and money on marketing and not do the deal. But that was the great thing that I wanted to make sure I did for my students is I could support them on those leads, because it's very painful when you have a lead and then you don't make money. That sucks. But what sucks even more is you don't know what you did wrong, and you don't have someone to tell you what you did wrong
For
or
sure.
to
For sure.
help you through that process. Right. So I'm glad that I was able to help you with those. And one of my other students, Jared Frankham, in Lubbock, Texas. He said it best. I reached out to him the other day and we were talking, and he had a $40,000 deal, or was it 30? I don't remember. It was a lot of money. It was a deal that like the dude's like, yeah, we're going to sign, blah, blah, blah. It was like a guaranteed thing. And then he ghosted him and signed with someone else. And he's like, I don't know what else I could have done different. Um, and he's like, I finally had to just be like, well, I'm just so grateful I'm in an industry where I get to negotiate those kinds of deals.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, like how cool is it that we found this, that we are a part of this business, right? Like how many other people are out hustling their butts off for $2,000-$3,000 a month, $5,000 a month when we can do that in one deal with a few hours of negotiations. It's crazy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of excitement with that. Like when a deal starts to come through and you think, okay, maybe this is this is the one, and you run after it. And I know it's something to look forward to. So each week I look forward to what's coming down the pipeline, you know?
Yeah, and you're in California, so you have a market where your house prices are higher, where the potential for bigger deals is more common, right? But that doesn't mean you can't do big deals in lower end markets. Like
Sure.
we have a
Well,
student.
I'm in a smaller market in California.
Right, but what is your
Yeah.
median house price? Isn't it around 250 if I remember right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about 250. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is still like you can definitely do six-figure deals in that market. But Michael Brown in Louisville, Kentucky, he's closing on the biggest deal any student's ever closed so far of all my coaching, even bigger than me. So Scott Dallinger had the record at 113,000, and now Michael Brown's going to have the records 114,500. So like those are the types of deals, right? He was supposed to close Friday, but it's ended up closing today. So I'm like just waiting for him to text me so I can be like, new record. Yeah, it's almost as fun as doing it myself. It would be a little more fun if I was doing that deal myself, but it's at least it's a student of mine, right? All right. Anyways, tangents. I love it. So let's talk about this first deal. Like you said, it's not a giant deal. There's bigger deals and more potential out there, but it's proof of concept, right? Which is the best thing. So tell me about this deal. How did it go down? How did you find it? That kind of thing.
Well, it came in generated from a text, and so the text came in at the same time that another much larger deal that I kind of missed the boat on came through, and so this was sort of an afterthought. And I spoke with you about it, and I said, the house is done. It doesn't need any improvements. It doesn't need anything. It's about $200,000 ARV, and it doesn't need any work. And I talked about where the seller was at, and the seller wanted 175 for it. And so we talked a little more, and you said, you know what, I think there's probably some money in this deal. And so keep at it. And so I went, spoke with the lady. She was actually out of state. So we spoke over the phone, went and saw the property, and she got it under contract at 169. And you said, yeah, there's money there. So I put it out to everybody, did the text messages, sent it out via email. And like, I didn't get a whole lot. I got a couple people that were like, hey, glad that you got something under contract, not for me. And one of my friends said, hey, I'd be interested in this deal. And then I spoke with him about it, and he said, no, I've got cold feet because the comps in the area are lower than I thought. And so, no, he bailed. And then spoke with another person that seemed interested, and they bailed. So I just started calling everybody that I could think of, calling and texting. And I went through about 100 people. And then finally I get this message from a guy that says, hey, tell me about the house. And I had one other person that said, yeah, I'll walk through it next week, but he didn't seem all that interested, other than, yeah, I'll take a look. And so this person calls me up, and we start talking over the phone, and he says that he's got a 1031 exchange, and he needs to put some money into a property.
That's
said,
so awesome.
yeah, he said, I'll take a look. So it was just it was the right timing with the right buyer. And as we spoke, he said, I like what you're trying to do. He says, I'm about 90% there. He said, I'm 90% away from just buying it sight unseen. at that price without having to take a look at it. And so he said he wanted to go look at it. I said, well, we'll take a look next week. And then he calls me up an hour later. He said, I drove by. I'm in. I'll just buy it. I'll just buy it right now. I said, okay. Well, the title. This is Friday at like 4 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and said, the title company is 10 minutes from where you are. Go there right now. Drop off a check, and it's yours. And so he did, and got it under contract. He dropped off a check right there, and the money came in today. So it's all good.
I love it. And you made $5,000 on this deal. It's really cool, the similarities with your story of my first deal. So the smaller deals, like the smaller assignments, it's like it's harder to move, right? So it's more work. You got to like
Yeah.
hustle to find the
Yeah.
right buyer. My first wholesale deal, it was the second property I'd put under contract to try and wholesale. And the guy that knew everything in my market, great guy, a lot of respect for him. He's a major flipper and owns a brokerage. Like he's in business, a long time, much more experience than me. And he's like, dude, there's no way you'll be able to move that for what you have it under contract for, let alone more. And,
Yeah. No, I had people laugh at me, just straight
right?
laugh. Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny because not a single person was interested except for one guy, but he had a 1031 tax exchange, and I had met him at an auction trying to buy houses. And so it's like, thank goodness he needed to shelter some tax money, because I wouldn't have made any money, but I made 10 grand on that deal. And he's never bought a property from me since.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Right. Which is so funny. And so it's just really cool how it's never guaranteed once you get that purchase contract, right? The biggest thing is finding someone that needs your help and wants to sell it through an investor and wants that thing gone quickly. They don't want to work through an agent, and serve them in any way that you can. And the best part is when you get deals that are under contract way lower, you'll send out that initial email blast and text blast, and you'll have 5, 10, even 20 people like fighting over it, trying to get you to take offers before your showings. And you're like, nope. And you get 10, 20 grand above what you send it out for. And you're making those $40,000, $50,000 type assignments. And those are really refreshing and really nice, because they're a lot less stress. And they're a little stressful because it's so much money, right? It's more than most people make in a year, but it's a lot less work, which is kind of counterintuitive. So let's talk about this. Well, first of all, congratulations on your first deal.
Thank you. Proof of concept. Check.
Proof. Yes. It can be done. Yeah. You're capable. It can be done over and over and over. And, an average deal in your market's going to be about $25,000 to $30,000. Right. And so you're way, way on that low end, but it's just kind of how the cookie crumbled. Right. And from here on out, like the goal is to get more deals and get our average up. And you got another one under contract. Did you say today? Or yesterday?
No, last week. So Thursday.
Last week. That's right.
Yeah. So Thursday, I was texting. It's funny. I text people in between patients. I'm on Lead Sherpa all the time, just sending out texts, right?
Love it.
And so I might have like 5 or 10 minutes in between a patient, and I'm just clicking those buttons. And some lady responded back, and she said, "Oh, I've got she said, she was kind of nasty about it. She said, there's fire damage on the home. Do your homework on it." And like was kind of mean about it. And so, I replied back, well, you might have some options. Should we discuss it? Nothing. So on the way home from work, I decided to give her a call, talk to her, got in touch with her, thankfully. And she told me about the fire damage. The whole house is just totaled with fire. But there's some things that I think we could probably rework. Anyway, she's got some other things with her situation as far as, what she owes on the house, what she's trying to get back from the insurance, how all of this is supposed to move, the letters that she's getting from the city, all of these things, to the point where she says, I just want to be done with this. And we talked through all of it. And so I got home from work, and I just turned around and went to her house and signed a contract with her right there. And
You're like, honey, I'm going to go make the money. See ya.
yeah, exactly. So, so she accepted, you know, an offer for a few $1,000s below land value, and
Wow.
we're going to see what we can do with it.
Wow.
So I'm excited about it. And you know, the interesting thing was when we were talking, I'm sitting there in her house, we're talking about the situation, and she says, "You know what? I've talked with all kinds of people that have come by, and you know, I've gotten all kinds of cards and texts and whatever
Mhm.
else. I went to somebody came and looked at the house on Monday, went through it, and they're giving me a bid on it." And I said, "People, they just send me amounts, and they've never even seen the place. They just want to send me, you know, an offer, and they've never seen it." And I turned around and said, "Ramona, I haven't seen it. I've got no idea what the place looks like." And she said, "Yeah, but you know my situation." And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh man." So that that was a light bulb moment where she felt like, okay, knew the mechanics of everything that was going on and what was important to her, and she signed right there. So
Yep.
it was big. So thank you for teaching me how to do that stuff.
I freaking love it, dude. That's so cool. And so I've done fire damage properties and I made a lot of money on them. One of my biggest fire damage deals was like 70 grand, right?
Hmm.
Or maybe it was 75 or 65. It was anywhere between 60 and 75 ish, right? It was a lot of money. Um, so there's a ton of money to be made. After this call, I want to get into how we can structure this. But if you got it under land value, you're going to make a lot of money.
Okay.
What is this property worth fixed up?
It's not worth it a ton fixed up. So it's probably 150, 160.
Okay, what did you have it under contract for?
I had it under contract for 20.
Oh, is the have you gone in and paid a civil or a structural engineer to give you engineer plans?
I haven't. I mean, I just went in and I took a look at it a couple days ago, which was sketchy. It's all boarded up. I'm like peeling plywood off this thing, and
Oh.
I mean, it looks like an escape room all throughout.
Okay, so what we want to do is we want to find out what's salvageable in the house. So usually when you have fire damage, it's going to need all new plumbing, electrical, everything new up to date, right? So,
Yeah.
but you can a lot of the time salvage the main infrastructure. You can
Hmm.
salvage the trusses and the framing, and depending on how bad it is, you're going to have to shore up different. And I've actually gone in and done a full fire damage remodel and paid an engineer and paid for engineer plans. I've gone through that process. And so the way you're going to handle this, I know we were going to talk about this in the support call, but we might as well just do it now, right? And get some value to the
Sure.
people listening. So what I want you to do is go find a structural engineer and pay for structural engineer plans, right? As part of
Okay.
your inspection. And they're going to run you anywhere between $1,000 and a couple $1,000.
Okay.
And then what that's going to give you is exactly what needs to be done to make that property structurally safe. So it's going to say,
Hmm.
hey, like this part of the house, you need to shore up all these trusses and these beams and blah 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 blah. And certain things will have to be completely demoed, and you're going to find out if it's salvageable or not. The main infrastructure.
Hmm.
Once you have that, then you can send out to your cash buyers that you have a deal, and when they come out and look at it, they're going to have the blueprints to look at and be able to actually get bids from their contractors. And you should get a PDF
Gotcha.
file so you can send them those with the email of what is going to be required to make that thing salvageable.
Hmm.
Um, so it's going to be a big remodel, right? Because they're going to need absolutely everything, plumbing, electricals, everything else. And then they're also going to have some structural stuff that they have to do as well.
Yeah.
But it is, most of the time it is actually very salvageable. So even if the timbers are charred, they have
Hmm.
this like white sealant that they spray it all down with. Right. And then
Okay.
if they're too charred, they'll have to like they'll shore them up. So they'll put trusses on or beams or whatever on each side of the charred one.
Hmm.
Um, and they usually can salvage it, and it's a lot cheaper than tearing it down and restarting. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, that's the way to start is get your engineer plans and then send it out to your cash buyers list. But you should make a lot of money. If you got it for 20, I mean, that I'd be shocked if you don't make 50 or more.
Oh, really? Okay. I
Yeah.
was I was talking with somebody else who said that the way that he would go about it is just he would just turn around and list it back on the open market. Um, it
And
after
it's an
getting a
option. It's an option. I mean, I would send it out to your cash buyers at least and just see, but I would definitely get engineer plans, right?
yeah,
Because even if you do go end up listing it, those engineer plans will be they're going to have to be done anyway. Someone's going to have to do that at some point, and it's going to be very
yeah,
fast to get offers, because what they need to get bids for them, for their own contractors and that kind of stuff, is
and
already going to be
plans.
laid out in front of them beautifully.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good advice.
Cool. Cool. Well, you're going to crush it on the second deal. I'm really excited for you. Again, congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing your story. What sage piece of advice would you give Travis Ryan when he was first starting, now that you're an experienced
To
investor?
say, oh man, in all my wisdom now of doing this for 2 months, I would say um, to push, just keep pushing and uh, have a short memory on the failures and just keep pushing.
Gotcha. Love it. Love it. So take that advice, y'all that are just starting. Just keep pushing. This can be possible for you. Just don't give up. Love it.
Mm. Thanks, Zach.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for joining in.